Long ago, among the tall trees near the shores of the Red Sea, lived a very rude rhinoceros. He had no manners then, and he has no manners now. You could recognize him by the horn on his nose, but in those days his skin was smooth and tight, and there wasn't a wrinkle in sight. He had 3 buttons on his tummy, which made it look just like a well-fitted jacket. One day, as Rhinoceros was searching for food, a traveler arrived on the beach and decided to bake a cake in his little oven. He sang to himself as he mixed flour and water and currants and plums and lots of sugar. Happy with his mixture, he popped it in the oven while he dozed under the burning sun. Soon, the sweet smell of cake filled the air. Delicious, smiled the traveler when the cake was ready. In the nearby woods, Rhinoceros suddenly stopped in his tracks and lifted his head. He sniffed and sniffed. "Cake," he snorted as the warm smells wafted above his horn. Then he followed his nose and headed for the beach. When the polite traveler saw him coming, he said, "Good morning," but the rude creature didn't even give a grunt. Instead, he charged ahead, knocking the cake out of the traveler's hands. Then he spiked the cake with his horn and he lumbered back to his home. There, he lay in the shade, enjoying every single crumb. Meanwhile, the traveler climbed a palm tree and sat on high, thinking and planning. "Just wait," he muttered. "I'll teach that rhino a lesson." A few weeks later, when soaring heat prompted everyone to take to the sea, the traveler knew the time had come. He was sitting on the beach wearing his hat to screen him from the ferocious sun when he spied on Rhinoceros. His eyes followed the creature as he heaved his great body along the sand. Not noticing the traveler, Rhinoceros finally stopped. Rhinoceros slowly undid his 3 buttons, took off his skin, and carried it over his shoulder as he went down to the sea to bathe. Leaving his skin at the edge of the water, he waddled into the sea. The traveler immediately jumped up. He danced around the skin and rubbed his hands with glee. "I'm ready," the traveler cried. "Just you wait and see." Then he set off back to his camp. As the traveler only ever ate cake and rarely cleaned up, there were plenty of crumbs around his camp. "Lots of crumbs, crumbly crumbs," he sang as he quickly filled his hat with the stale cake crumbs. Then he raced back to the beach. Picking up the skin of the rhinoceros, the traveler sprinkled the inside with lots of dry, tickly cake and some baked currants. Then he left the skin for Rhinoceros, climbed to the top of his palm tree, and waited. Rhinoceros took his time in the sea. He lay on his back and blew bubbles through his nose. He splashed and splashed, never caring about others in the water. Finally, as his great big tummy started to rumble and feeling much cooler from his swim, Rhinoceros returned to the beach. Thinking about what he was going to eat, Rhinoceros picked up his skin and buttoned it up. No sooner had he finished closing the last button than the crumbs started to itch. He wriggled and wriggled. He began to scratch, but that made it worse. "Ow! Ow!" he cried loudly. Then he lay down on the sand and rolled and rolled and rolled. But every time he rolled, the cake crumbs dug into him, making it more and more uncomfortable. He was beginning to feel very hot again and very, very crabby. He lumbered up to a palm tree and rubbed himself against the trunk, but still the itching continued. He pressed his shoulders so hard against the tree that he rubbed his skin into a great fold. Then his legs started to itch, so he rubbed them up and down the tree until folds appeared over both legs. He was now feeling very tired as he pressed his itchy tummy against the tree. He rubbed off every button. Finally, a huge fold of skin appeared across his tummy. The traveler looked down from the palm tree, watching his plan working. The rhinoceros became more and more bad-tempered as the cake crumbs continued to itch and scratch. Feeling exhausted and very angry, Rhinoceros finally gave up and headed back home. And from that day to this, every rhinoceros has great folds in his skin and a very bad temper, all because of the cake crumbs inside. The end.